Chapter 1. The Master's Apprentice. Cherry red fire burst to light, a brilliant display that glimmered over a pool of oil. Odors of metal and toasted peanuts filled the room, mingling with the old auto grease scent of a working garage. Raising the flaming weapon, the apprentice puffed up her cheeks and blew, extinguishing the fire. Maggie Cartwright, master smith, didn't even look up from her own work, hammering lightly to shape metal over a socket mold. She did, however, reach up to turn on her hearing aids so she could hear the inevitable argument more clearly. Bad quench. Xena threw up her hands. "Are you serious?" Half a foot taller than Maggie and sporting round ears, the changeling could pass as human, even to those in the know. Looks were deceiving, though. Fey magic ran through her blood as surely as Maggie's, and she could learn the old ways of forging. In theory, at least, Maggie thought. In practice, teaching Xena had been a headache and a half, and her choice of apprentice had worn on her more and more the longer they worked together. "Am I serious?" she echoed. "Do you think I'm wrong?" Holding the end of the forging tongs, Xena carried the freshly quenched arrowhead over to their workbench and picked up a file, running it along the inch-long edge. It skated clean over the steel, and she gestured at the arrowhead. "It's hard." "It's hard, sure," Maggie confirmed, setting aside the next arrowhead. Batch production required patience, dedication, and repetition. It provided a perfect training bed to learn. When you dipped it into the quench, you swished it side to side. That makes metal cool unevenly. Surefire way to pick up a warp. Xena lifted the arrowhead, turning it sideways to peer at it. Her lips drew into the slightest frown, barely visible, but even without the gesture, her lack of reply said enough. "See?" Maggie asked, getting up and walking over to inspect the warp. It was there. Tiny, but there. "It's off by like a millimeter," Xena said, her tone half on the way to fully pouting. "It'll grind out." Reaching up, Maggie adjusted one of her hearing aids. She'd grown pretty used to Xena's speech styles, and the aids did a pretty good job at amplifying speech while blocking out the high decibel clangs of forge work, but she still missed an odd word here and there. "I'm sure it could grind out. That's not how we do things. We're going to heat it up, hammer out the warp, restart the temper, and nail the quench next time." Jaw clenching, Xena set aside the bad arrowhead. Cool. Impulses fought in Maggie's head, to snap at her apprentice or to roll her eyes and ignore the petulance. She wondered if she'd been that much of a pain when she learned. I actually listened to my forge master. Didn't I? Their pace couldn't be helping with the tension. They'd been making broadhead arrows for a couple of days, and the tedium of the work would be a drag on the young mind. Xena had only recently been allowed to handle any part of the hot metal herself, and this sort of workmanlike repetition was good experience, but could be staggeringly boring all the same. Maggie offered an olive branch. "Let's take a break," she said. "We've been working all day, and the fans can't keep up with the heat. That's bound to make anyone crabby." "If you're feeling crabby, sure," Xena replied, grasping the broadhead between her forging tongs. "I'm fine, boss. You can go take a break." Maggie tried to keep the edge from her tone. She failed. "Xena." Her apprentice looked up at her, raising an eyebrow. "Maggie?" "We're taking a break," Maggie insisted. "Stop what you're doing." Xena shot her a look that could be parsed half a dozen ways: annoyance or acceptance, frustration or compliance. Ambiguous enough that Maggie felt she couldn't say anything about it. Though in her 20s, by Fey lifespans, that still put her firmly in the teenager category in Maggie's mind, and her ambiguous moodiness did nothing to dispel the image. "Fine," Xena said, setting aside the tongs and killing the furnace. The flame guttered out, and she peeled off her leather gloves one finger at a time, tossing them onto the counter. "I'll be upstairs." Furrowing her brow, Maggie removed her own gloves and left the forge room. It was set up in the center of her mechanic shop, but even with the bay doors thrown open and all the fans kicked into high gear, it got sweltering in the summer with the furnace running.